All right, well, Ukraine's dirty little secret is now out of the bag. 600,000 Ukrainian men have been killed in that war. That, by the way, is a conservative number. I've spoken to military brass that believe it's well over 700,000 dead. And the Biden administration is aware that Ukraine is about to fall to Russia unless it puts NATO boots on the ground to fill the ranks of dead soldiers. Some shit is about to hit the fan. And over the past few days, Poland, NATO, have amassed tens of thousands of soldiers along the Polish border with Ukraine. Why? That's because something big is coming. Poland, of course, worried that they are about to be invaded by tens of thousands of Ukrainian refugees. You saw what happened at the beginning of the war when that country was changed forever as a result of millions of Ukrainian refugees that landed in that country. Many, of course, have now returned, but now the concern is that they would flood the border. Now, Zelensky this morning, the authoritarian ruler of Ukraine, Zelensky this morning slammed the United States, slammed the West, and demanded once again a NATO no-fly zone over Ukraine. This is something he's been asking for years. He called on NATO to stop sitting on the sidelines, start shooting down Russian aircraft, start shooting down Russian drones. He also said that the Western countries are too concerned about escalating the conflict. Yeah, we're concerned about starting World War III. We don't want a nuclear confrontation with Russia. Imagine that. Basically calling us wimps who are worried about World War III. We're wimps. Go ahead, Phil.
So sorry, real quick. Where does he think World War III is going to take place? Where is it going to start? If he's got a problem with Russia invading Ukraine, what happens when everybody is fighting in Ukraine? Like that doesn't make things better.
I don't think he thought that through.
And I don't think he much cares, to be honest with you. I mean, I don't think he much cares that his own country, of course, has been used now as a massive aircraft carrier to begin with. All the land is sold off to BlackRock and
most Ukrainian men have been conscripted. In fact, just today, Ukraine said it found 16 men in a meat freezer trying to escape the draft. He does not care about the lives of his people. I am very comfortable saying that declaratively.
Yeah.
He's an asshole.
So he's calling us wimps who are worried about World War III. And of course, we're wimps and we will likely do his bidding because that's what we've done so far. The United States has done his bidding, even though it's taken a few months to do it. F-16s, we're not going to do it. Okay, we'll do it. All the weapons you want, HIMARS, yeah, we'll do it. We'll do all of it. Because, after all, we just do your bidding. Just like we'll do Israel's bidding, by the way. Netanyahu says that the United States must join Israel to combat Iran. So we're going to do all of these things, and we're going to send soldiers. The Biden administration has been laying the groundwork to bring back a draft in the United States in order to fight Russia and Iran simultaneously. I just saw someone in our Rumble chat who just said, where in the Constitution does it mention a conscription of American service members? Where in the Constitution? Point me to it. I'd love to see that in the U.S. Constitution. Military experts are telling the Mockingbird media that, by the way, that sending tanks and F-16s to Ukraine is not enough. Manpower, boots on the ground is the only way to win. They need the manpower to man these weapons. No amount of drones is going to win this thing. And Ukraine is in dire straits right now. Ukraine's last-ditch failed offensive over the past 48 hours into Russia officially collapsed this morning, not too long before our show just started, leaving 300 Ukrainians dead. And Vladimir Putin commented on this move into the Kursk region. Ukraine launched attacks on civilians in Kursk, hitting homes. They targeted ambulances and other civilian areas, but that has now collapsed. And Russia stopped that advance. Russian President Putin just speaking a short time ago on this advance in the Kursk region. Listen.
I have to begin with the developments in the Kursk region. As we know, the Kiev regime is making another large-scale provocation, shooting indiscreetly, using all kinds of weaponry, including missile weaponry, targeting civilian buildings, ambulances,
homes, civilian infrastructure. As Moon of Alabama points out today, in 1943, during World War II, the German attack on Kursk was launched for a similar reason, to try to divert Russian forces away from attacking in the Donetsk region. and it ended in utter defeat. So basically trying to distract Russian forces up in Kursk instead of down in Donetsk in the Donbass. Even pro-Ukrainian commentators who love Ukraine, are all about the Ukrainian side of the war, are shocked at how stupid this move was. Again, as Moon of Alabama posted, a total waste of men and resources. Here's what the commenter writes. The situation in the Pokrovsk direction is critical, with defenses in several areas collapsed. And yet to stabilize, largely due to a shortage of personnel, diverting nearly a brigade to launch an assault on the Kursk Oblast, which lacks strategic sense, and it borders on mental disability. Basically calling Ukrainian military officials mentally unstable, mentally disabled at this point. But more importantly, we just got some stunning news over the past few days out of Ukraine. And this is really stunning. According to a new report, the Ukrainian armed forces have been drafting around 30,000 troops monthly since May. Now, on the face of it, you say, how's that possible? They have no men left, right? How is that possible? Well, this is a staggering number and a clear indication of the dire straits in which Ukraine finds itself. Well, the New York Times separately confirmed this number. Ukraine ramps up mobilization, hoping to bolster battlefield strength. So where is this? How is this happening? Well, this isn't just like some amazing mainstream narrative like, wow, these men are just lining up to volunteer. No, these men are not just deciding to enlist to fight against Russia. Ukraine's conscription law now makes it mandatory. Of course, that was passed just recently. And also, you'll recall that Ukraine also tried to block you from seeing videos like this. If you take videos of these conscription body snatchers grabbing men off the streets and throwing them into paddy wagons and taking them off to the front lines, if you live in Ukraine, social media police will come to your house. You're not allowed to do this anymore. So that's why a lot of these videos have now dried up. You're not allowed to see them anymore. But now these body snatchers are out in full force. 30,000 per month they're rounding up off the streets. Do you have a disability? Who cares? Walk with a limp? Doesn't matter. Are you mentally disabled? Doesn't matter. We'll throw you in the wagon and we'll take you off to the front lines. Are you old? It doesn't matter. Are you too young? It doesn't matter. Do you support your family and your family's relying on your one income and you can't go to war? Doesn't matter. We're going to throw you into a wagon and you're going to go fight. That's exactly what's happening. The body snatchers are out in full force all over the country, grabbing men off the streets just like never before, dragging them into vans, forcing them to go fight, young men, old men. It doesn't matter anymore at all. This is a nation that is absolutely desperate right now to fill its meat grinder ranks. Speaking of meat, this desperate conscription drive has led to some appalling scenes like this. According to reporting from RT, there are now meat trucks operating with Ukrainian men trying to get out of Ukraine, hiding in frozen meat trucks like this one, like in the body, in the corpses of frozen meat, trying to bury themselves within this. Here you can see these men being rounded up. And so now they're stopping these meat trucks as Ukrainian draft dodgers are trying to get out, trying to get into Moldova and trying to get into Poland and other countries right now. Military recruiters are stopping these meat trucks, and instead of finding all this frozen meat in there, they're having to dig through and find all these men that are trying to escape the draft right now. Now, why should we, here in the United States, care about the conscription practices of countries thousands of miles away? Because, my friends, what is happening in Ukraine could very well foreshadow what might be happening here at home in the United States. The most recent edition of the U.S. Army War College's academic journal includes a section that's titled Casualties, Replacements, and Reconstitutions. Now, we've covered what the Biden administration has been doing towards a draft, and I think it's worth repeating today. And I think, the Mises Institute, Libertarian Mises Institute, really, did a great article on this last year that we featured here. Just let this sink in for a moment. The thought of returning to a military draft, a system that forces our young citizens into combat roles, is being seriously considered by Pentagon brass. The context provided within this essay notes that in the event of a large-scale conflict, the U.S. military could face a staggering 3,600 casualties per day, requiring 800 replacements per day. For context, the U.S. suffered about 50,000 casualties over 20 years in Iraq and Afghanistan. And so the essay suggests that such a number could be reached in just 2 weeks of intensive combat in a large-scale war. In other words, facing Russia head-on would leave us with 50,000 casualties in just 2 weeks of fighting. Unbelievable. So they need a draft. They need a conscription. They need to be able to get as many men as possible into these roles, into these ranks. And you'll recall, of course, the Biden administration lowered military standards and opened it up to, hey, you're transgender? Come on in. We'll welcome you. You have lower fitness standards? Come on in. We'll welcome you into the U.S. military. We need them right now. The military is already grappling with a significant recruiting shortfall. Last year alone, the Army missed its recruitment goal by 15,000 soldiers, and it's projected to fall short by an additional 20,000 this year. So a draft is honestly the only way they're going to be able to stand up to Russia, put boots on the ground in Ukraine, be able to stand up to Iran. Oh, and by the way, what are your plans for China? You want to mix that into this as well? Turns out using drones, using aircraft is not the answer and is not the solution, and you are going to lose. So if you want to walk away and lose Ukraine completely, then you can do that. Otherwise, they're going to have to put boots on the ground. As Colonel Douglas Macgregor points out, Putin does not want a conflict with NATO. He said that repeatedly, but it looks like he's about to get one.
President Putin wants to avoid a direct confrontation with the United States and NATO. He's never wanted it. We're the ones that goaded him into attacking into eastern Ukraine to begin with. We're the ones that wanted to place forces right on his border with the goal of attacking him. We're the ones that wanted to place missile systems there. So I think it's very obvious that under the circumstances, he could have attacked with any number of different weapon systems a long time ago, and he hasn't done it. I hope he can continue to exercise restraint, because I think we're nearing the end of this tragedy, frankly.
So there you go. That's what's happening right now. The U.S. Involved in this, and we could see a major development here with boots on the ground, and and the U.S. military realizing, of course, that in fact they do not have the opportunity to win this war without having boots on the ground. They cannot do it with aircraft alone. They cannot do it with drones alone. So we will see what happens in Russia and in Ukraine over the next 48 hours. We'll see.